At this time, we welcome to the Guerrilla Press studio the Illinois 7th District Congressional candidate, Reed Showalter. Reed, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I am excited. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Reed, you have quite a background here. You are, what, how old are you?
I'm 32 years old.
Wow, you look great. You look great. You don't look like someone that has been in politics and has done as much as you have. A lot of people get aged when they do politics. That doesn't seem to have hit you quite yet.
Yeah, sunscreen helps. But other than that, you know,
Sunscreen. I've been getting into it recently.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
I was going to say, do you have a painting in an attic or something where it's like you falling apart?
I not yet. Not that I've found, but
Okay.
I'm trying to avoid it. You know, no Dorian Gray anywhere around here.
Sure, good reference.
Good, I'm glad you knew what I was referencing.
I got you.
That's good. Anti-monopoly lawyer.
Yeah.
You were the senior policy advisor for the National Economic Council, correct?
Yeah.
You were legislative affairs counsel for the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. And of course, an attorney for the FTC, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Wow.
Nailed it.
Awesome. Now, we want to start with the FTC stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, the Federal Trade Commission, big deal. You were there. You left in January 2025, right? And that was right as the Trump administration was coming into play. You were there in the White House when Biden was president.
Yeah.
Talk to us. Take us into that moment there where it's January 2025. Why did you leave? What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I joined government more broadly because I think our government has for a really long time sold people out and failed to make sure that you have a real chance that we are not being dominated by giant corporations and multi-billionaire corporate interests. And the reason I became an antitrust attorney, the reason I did all this work from the beginning was because I thought that was unfair and messed up. And I joined government in order to do that. When Donald Trump won on the back of corporate interests and oligarchy and turned around and said, I'm going to turn this administration into a tool for that type of corruption, I was like, this is, I'm not here for that. I am here to do the work of trying to make sure that our economy is fairer and less bought and controlled by wealthy interests. And this DOJ, this White House, this government is, it was a bunch of CEOs in the front row of his inauguration for a reason. This is the story, I think, of fascism that sometimes we don't tell. It's not just the authoritarian wannabe at the top, it's the giant oligarchs that make it happen and bend the knee too. And it was a place that I wouldn't tolerate being. It's like, I'm not going to lend my labor to people that are doing evil things.
I feel that. So do you feel like it's better to fight from the outside than within?
Yeah, if you're going to fight from the inside, you need to at least have a way to make a difference. This is sort of my theory on being in the Biden administration. I didn't agree with a lot of what the Biden administration was doing. There were many, many things that I struggled to go to sleep at night, but there was a pocket there, like people like Lena Khan, people like Jonathan Cantor, people like Rohit Chopra, who were doing really cool work to say, we're going to take on monopoly power. We are going to bust up big business. We are going to try to restore power to regular working class people. And if you have that lever, great, you can pull it. But it's not worth it to sort of stay in the Death Star if there's nothing there that you can actually pull to make it do something better.
I'm curious, you say there were things that kept you up at night that you couldn't sleep over,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to go down a negative path here and relitigate things, but I'm just curious because you said it.
Yeah.
Like, what was going on during your two and a half years at the Biden administration? What was going on there that you were losing sleep over?
Well, I mean, the United States' continued participation and funding of a genocide, and not just that, but the massive increase in the money that we were spending and the support that we were doing there, it's horrifying. And the fact that it was done in our name and with our money is and always has been unacceptable. You do not have something like the apartheid state set up in Palestine without our support, and it's really, really hard to show up in an administration that is doing that. The only thing that kind of kept me going was the fact that there were things in smaller pockets where we were like, okay, well, the only way that I think we correct this, because it's a bipartisan issue, the only way we start to correct this is by trying to take on giant corporate power, to take on the ways that our politics have been bought, sold, and controlled. And I really believed in the mission that we were doing there of, here is the strongest tools that the country has ever created to break up concentrated power, and the institutions that in the past have been the ones that could try to do it. It's like the DOJ and the FTC, like, those are big hitters.
Yeah.
And if you get a chance to sit in that chair and do some of that work, if you believe that you can make the economy fair, if you believe that you can make our politics less bought, you take that chance where you can. And it's a real moral conundrum to like be doing that work while down the hall there are people who are bombing children.
And so you're like you said, you're down the hall, right?
Yeah.
Now, are there conversations going on with Biden higher ups and people in other departments saying, "Hey, look, not only is this morally wrong, but they haven't released the autopsy for why we lost this last election, right?"
Yeah. Which we know why we lost.
Well, why do you think we lost?
Well, it was leaked relatively recently that one of the primary reasons was because Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris refused to recognize what is like one of the defining moral issues of our time, that we have been funding a genocide and an apartheid state.
Correct.
I think it's quite clear, and we lost. We continue to do what I think the Democratic Party has done for a long time, which is we think that as a party you're going to win people, you're going to win the left, you're going to win progressives by being a Republican.
Yeah.
And if you I don't know where we're learning that lesson from, because Republicans have no shame about fighting for totalitarian, authoritarian, like ethno-fascist values. They're very clear on it. They say this is a country for rich white men and everyone else get the hell out. And then you have what's supposed to be an opposition party to that is fighting for progressive values and equity and dignity and working people. And instead our message is constantly, well, how can we try to pick up the Liz Cheney voters? Rather than fighting for the values that get your base excited, that are the core of what your value set is supposed to be. That, I think, is why we lost, right? You had somebody that showed up and said, I would not do anything different from Joe Biden. I will be the most lethal military force in the world. We will continue to bomb Palestinians, and we will not take on corporate power. I will continue to accept corporate PAC money, and billionaires are the senior advisors on my campaign. And I wouldn't vote for that. It's hard.
And then you get that, and then they turn around and go, and if you don't vote for us, the more evil people are going to come in. And it's like, well...
And it's true. Like, the more evil people are going to come true, but I get why there's not enthusiasm. You know, you're not giving an alternative. You're just saying, like, do you want to eat, a plate of dog food or a plate of garbage? And...
Dog food is human grade. You have to be able to eat dog food.
You do have to
after the Depression, because people were eating dog food during the Depression and they were getting sick.
Like, I tried a bacon strip one time. It's not bacon. It doesn't taste like it neither.
I'm sorry.
No,
that is puncturing a real illusion I had, and I am sad to know that it doesn't taste like bacon.
Damn.
I thought I was giving my dogs bacon.
This is a good conversation. You talk about the system, all the PAC money. Citizens United.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Citizens United allowed the unlimited flow of cash into our political system by companies, right?
Yep.
Money is speech. You can't stifle speech, right? And so what would be the repercussions, in your opinion, if Citizens United, the ruling that undid the 2002, whatever, just so complicated. What do you think would be the results if we undid the Citizens United ruling now? Do you think that would make any headway in repairing the system?
I think yes, but it's like one part of a 10-part fix. Citizens United is a big deal, but it's part of a lineage of cases that blew the door open for corporate influence in elections, that took the caps off a bunch of campaign spending more generally, that made it so, as you were saying, that corporations are treated as more people than people, and that money is more speech than speech. It's also like, we should overturn Citizens United. We should cap the spending in elections. We should have public funding of elections. We should have matching funds. But you can't do any of that also without Supreme Court reform, because the Supreme Court that put us in this position in the first place is still there, and is actually worse than it used to be.
Great. Let's talk about the Supreme Court.
Let's do it.
They suck.
They do.
Most of them suck. There's 3 that are okay. Pack the court. What's the answer here?
I am a packing the court fan. I actually think there's a way to do it that doesn't create the slippery slope too. Look, we've got to do a lot of democracy reform, and I count Supreme Court reform as part of that. You know, to have basically a super legislature of unelected emperors just sitting on the court is undemocratic. We can solve it, by saying like let's put 4 more progressives on the bench, but then it just creates this sort of cyclic temptation to say, well then, anytime we lose again, there will be 6 more Republicans that get appointed and then 9 more Democrats. I want to see something like, let's appoint 30 in a nonpartisan way. Congress can actually control the appointment process. It's still, the president has to approve it, but Congress can control the way it is done. So Congress can say, here are the 30 that you're allowed to pick. They are selected in a nonpartisan way. And also, by the way, we can say they're going to cycle up now in like 5 judge panels rather than all of them sitting at once, so it gets unwieldy. Now you have something that's like outside of the scope of just the partisan tit for tat game, and it's in a thing that Congress can control without having to do a constitutional amendment.
You act like Congress has control.
Congress has legal authority.
Okay. You're a lawyer. Let's talk about that. You're a lawyer. Let's talk about the legal authority that Congress seems to have abdicated right now. Rather than talk, it's a bit wore out how we all know the Republicans in Congress aren't doing anything, right?
Yeah.
You have the ability to actually be in Congress.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are saying there's a good chance that we can take the House and the Senate here now in the midterms. You get into power, you're with other progressive Democrats.
Yeah.
What are the first steps here that you take in holding the Trump administration accountable?
Yeah, there's a couple things here. Obviously, impeachment is top of mind. It depends on how much we win the Senate by. You need to win the Senate by a wide enough margin to like win an impeachment trial for that to actually stick and do something like removal of Donald Trump or removal of cabinet secretaries like RFK Jr. or the many people in and around
sucks.
DHS. He does suck.
He sucks. No, he's not that bad.
He's,
it's terrible.
Making people die, which feels like a crime, but apparently it's not a crime if you're a politician. So yes, I think impeachment proceedings and investigations are a big deal. Also, doing it in a way that isn't just about like a C-SPAN hearing. Here's a thing that's going to go up on the nightly news, but something that builds a record for prosecution. I talk about this more broadly, like abolishing and prosecuting ICE is not just a story of getting rid of ICE at the top layers of political leadership, but doing deep investigations that build a record for like state AGs and private parties to sue people and to put them in jail when they've done crimes. Because if you don't have real accountability top to bottom, then nobody's going to believe in the system anymore.
And I think that's what's happening now.
I was
going to say, I've lost, I mean, when he was like, when they were going to trial with him, and they were like, "Oh, we got to wait till after the election."
Yeah.
And then after the election, it's like he won, can't do anything. And I'm like, well, we should be outside, going French style,
right?
We got some pitchforks and shit. And the Epstein of it all, you see all the shit he's doing in there and reading about them, and then we're like, okay.
Yeah, I think it's the single greatest failure of the last administration that we failed to prosecute Donald Trump for inciting a violent insurrection.
Agreed. What happened to all those Republicans that wanted to do it the day after? Right. January 7th, they were all standing up one at a time saying it.
Right, and then there was a report that was sent over and a DOJ that was doing this investigation. I was not allowed to touch any of that, sadly. But that investigation was going on for years. And we know that the courts are slow and bad and full of Republicans stacked at every layer. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately what happened is they brought a case much too late. They ran out the time in the courts, and then they said, well, an election's already happening, so we can't prosecute anymore. Let's just wait to see what happens after the election. Oops, he won again. Anyway, we're going to move on with our day. Mm-hmm. That's a failure of the democratic system. People talk about it as though it's like something that happened far off, but our ability to have consequences for powerful people is just as much a part of democracy as voting.
Well, in 8 months, right, when you're in Congress, right, knock on wood, we will start to hopefully see guardrails put in place.
Yeah.
But of course, we're still 2.5 years away from what could be a real reckoning.
Yeah.
So let's say you're there, still have Congress, Donald Trump's on his way out. Once he's out of office as president, where does your mind go, Reed? Do we get the Hague? Like, what does that look like, buddy?
Yeah. I think I talked a bit about this from a democracy reform question, but when you have a changeover in an administration like this, you have energy to do one big thing, before the inertia starts again. I think if we're not talking about sweeping democracy reform, and it's not just ending racial and partisan gerrymandering, it's not just money out of politics, it's not just Supreme Court reform, it's also sort of what you're talking about, like a real accountability, truth, and reconciliation process that prosecutes the people who have torn up the democratic constitutional system by the roots. If we don't have something that actually puts consequences on what has happened over the last 2 years and then 4 years in the prior administration, I don't see why people would believe in a democracy. It has been failing to deliver for people at every juncture for a really long time. The democracy side, obviously, but also, this is why we don't have anything affordable. It's why our healthcare system has been rotted out by corporate interests for a really long time, because we have watched the whole thing crumble, and we have created a two-tier system of justice where if you are rich or politically connected, you can do anything you want. And if you are marginalized, brown, or poor, you are guilty even if you didn't do anything. And unless we have a real sweeping change driven by Congress, approved by the president, to say we're going to prosecute the people who have broken this system. We're going to top to bottom reform not just the electoral side, but create independence of the DOJ and the prosecuting bodies, create a real Supreme Court and a judicial system that is going to actually carry out those laws in a way that isn't partisan hackery, and do the prosecution, put the work behind it, and do the prosecution and the accountability, then we're never going to deserve power back, and we didn't deserve to win it back in the first place.
Yeah, because it's like the Democrats win, and then we get a hollow victory. You get Pelosi and Dashiki taking a knee, and we're like, okay, girl, get up. What are you doing with that money? You know what I'm saying? Or they might be like, oh, here's Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. Everybody shut up. Go back to work.
Yeah, you get the Ruth Conda forever.
The Ruth Conda forever. Damn.
I got you.
That's great.
And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well,
the power of the RBG.
Yeah, but this is the other part. We don't get a Green New Deal. We don't get single-payer health care. We don't get big public works program that restores power to regular people too, if we don't have democracy reform. Because the ways that the lobbyists and the corporate interests rot out and slow down that system runs through that same story. We dropped the Ticketmaster case the other day.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, find me a more hated company in America, a bipartisan hated company than Ticketmaster Live Nation.
We'll talk about it later. We'll
talk about it later. All right, I don't want to jump the gun on it, but this is a story that happens over and over again. It's not just the pedophile class that was on Epstein's island that are getting off. It's the giant corporations that are getting off without prosecution. It's Donald Trump's personal lawyers and his cabinet secretaries that are violating the law. There needs to be accountability there, and you don't get to take the next steps in the system of how do we do the progressive big swings without real accountability work.
You talk about the pedophile class, you talk about Epstein, you were in the DOJ.
Yeah.
Right now, Pam Bondi right now running the show over at the DOJ.
Yeah, man.
It would appear on the surface that she is covering up for Donald Trump and some very influential people. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I look at the redactions there. I've done the redactions from the DOJ, the types of things that get released publicly when there are records internally. The redactions you see from that are, one, sloppy, two, criminally over-redacted, and three, in blanket violation of the underlying statute, which says, hey, you're actually not allowed to redact this stuff. The stuff that talks about what the administration is doing, there's standard operating procedure that says maybe you can redact an administration official from that story. Congress passed a law that got rid of that protection. And so the fact that they are still holding back millions of pages of documents that are blacked out top to bottom, that from the context around it, we know are talking about senior Republican administration officials, is a violation of the law and is a criminal dereliction of duty of the attorneys who are there.
Yeah.
The people who are still there. You've got an obligation outside of Pam Bondi being your boss. Mm-hmm. Release those files.
You're saying, would you leak them to the press? What would you do with them?
Sure, yeah. I would leak them to the press, or I would not redact them in the first place.
Sure.
Right? When you're doing those redactions, it's not because your boss told you to. It's because that's the status of the law.
And is it the same for lawyers? Is it like in the military where if you're giving an illegal order, you don't have to follow an illegal order? So just because Pam Bondi's telling a lawyer to do this and she's in charge of the DOJ, which is wild because she's supposed to be like the law person in the country.
Right.
When the law person is telling you to break the law,
Yeah.
you as a lawyer, that's good, we have a lawyer here. You as a lawyer are saying illegal, don't do that.
Yeah, not only that, you could lose your law license for it. Like you do not have the right to call yourself a lawyer to practice law as an attorney and then violate a bunch of laws knowingly.
People forget, like after Watergate, how many people from Nixon's administration went down? It was like 40, right?
Yeah.
It was like a huge number of people, and it took a long time to go through that. Do you envision kind of a post-Watergate type situation here for the Trump administration?
I think so. I think there's got to be something in between the post-Watergates and like the Nuremberg trials, because there's a bunch of stuff that happened here too that are breaking the like fundamental basis of the constitutional system.
Yeah.
We didn't know to have explicit laws against it. But hey, arming a bunch of people to the teeth, letting them roll around in unmarked vans, kidnapping and killing our neighbors, that's obviously illegal, unconstitutional, and crazy.
We learned that in 1938.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, how many times do we have to learn it?
Right.
Yeah.
But that is something that is outside of the scope of just like the process that was created post-Watergate, and we need something kind of top to bottom here. We have this rare thing where the crisis is happening at both levels of government. Like the Nixon stuff was top-level corruption, but it was also senior political leadership. It wasn't like you had a bunch of thugs rolling around with guns killing neighbors as a part of Watergate.
Sure.
So we need both parts at the same time. We have functionally war criminals who are doing things on orders from the top, and also the top has absolutely violated their oath of office.
Man, we were talking a little bit earlier about people being disenfranchised by the system, right? There's an intentional disenfranchisement of voting, I guess whatever you want to call it, authority right now. You know, you look what happened in Texas, where the Republicans were able to, just by making it a county, flipping away, who was made it precincts instead of county voting, and everybody just lost their minds and nobody knew how to vote, and people are getting turned around. And now the Republicans can say, what a mess the vote is down in Texas. Why would we trust them to run the vote? Now we need to nationalize it. How concerned are you, as somebody that is in the thick of this right now, that your primary, your midterm, could find itself affected by the Trump administration?
So I think I am really deeply concerned about the midterms overall. I think the places where those attacks are the most effective is where they have allies in the state governments that can carry that out. And so it's the reason why you see stuff like that happening in Texas or in Georgia or in Republican states where you get a directive from on high, and also that can be carried out with a rapid special session in the state house and the state legislature to say, great, we've switched from county to precinct voting, and we're going to purge voter rolls, and we're going to change the ways that mail-in ballots count for local elections. I think, I'll put it this way, I'm a little bit less concerned about our elections in Illinois, our primary election in Illinois. I think in 6 days we're going to have a free and fair election, and I think it then becomes a duty and an obligation for everybody in a blue state like this, where elections are more likely to go off without a hitch, to use their power, their platform, and every tool that they have to make sure that elections aren't stolen in red states. Because that is the place where things are going to be active. And it's not, look, this is a seat, the 7th District is a D plus 34 seat, which means there is a 34% margin for Democrats in this seat. I don't think a Republican has won here since Abraham Lincoln. Which means it's not an excuse to sort of sit on your hands. It means you have every tool, every opportunity to be a champion for progressive values and democratic legitimacy everywhere else in the country once you win a primary like this. And I want to see the people who win these primaries in these deep blue Chicago seats use that platform, use their tools, like show up everywhere else and make sure that these elections aren't stolen, because I think there are a lot of threats trying to steal them.
You are using your voice now outside the White House. You are also you're physically putting your body on the line. Now, we've made contact with you while you were out at Broadview. You want to talk a little bit about why you were out at Broadview and what you were able to accomplish this past weekend?
Yeah, for sure. I'll say we've been out at Broadview every week since Operation Midway Blitz started, because, as you're saying, it's important to put your body on the line, especially when there are people who can't. You know, I have a tremendous amount of privilege here. I am a straight white guy with a law degree, and
You're white?
Yeah, man, I was like, I'm just like you till the law part, and I was like, probably should have finished that degree, you know?
Yeah, but like, look, there's a lot of people who are affected by this every day who can't go out and protest because ICE is allowed to make arrests based on skin color and accent, based on whatever suspicion they have. And so if you're not using that privilege, like, I can go up and say, like, if you try to arrest me, I know my rights. And I know a lot of lawyers too.
Yeah.
And I'm a lawyer myself. And so showing up and doing that work every day is kind of the thing that, look, I'd be doing it if I weren't running for office. I've been in these spaces for my entire adult life. But this weekend we saw exactly what it means to be able to use that platform to stop ICE from violating people's rights, because I got a call late at night from somebody who said, hey, my childhood friend was picked up at O'Hare. They've been held by CBP for the past 30 hours. We don't know how to get a hold of them. And suddenly their location started pinging from their phone from the Broadview ICE Detention Center.
Oh my God.
And you know, the call was basically, we don't know what to do, but we know you've been there. Can you show up and help? And so we dropped everything. We showed up, drove out there, and we were one of the 4 people out there talking with Broadview Police, Cook County Sheriff, and trying to talk back and forth with the ICE agents who were there, saying, yeah, we know her phone is pinging from inside this facility, but we don't know what you're talking about. We've never processed anybody here, and we actually haven't even processed a woman through this facility in days. So you're full of shit. All the while, we've got texts, calls, messages to her family. I'm standing with her family, who says, I'm looking at the phone right now. It says it's in Broadview. I don't know how you fake that.
Yeah.
It's like in the center of that building.
Unless they stole her phone, right?
Like pick up phones all the time.
Yeah, we steal phones. We never processed a woman,
Plus the text message to her best friend at the same time saying, I think I'm in a ICE detention center. And the location at the top of that text, which says Broadview, Illinois. So I don't know what to say besides ICE has been lying for a very long time, and to expect, obviously, ICE is lying again. And what we heard is this person was picked up after traveling, international travel, picked up with 5 other colleagues, 2 other citizens, 3 other legal residents, and they were all just sort of rounded up, held at O'Hare, held then at Broadview, and then after a bunch of pressure at Broadview, dropped off at a different ICE detention center in Juneau, Wisconsin. And so what we did after that call was call every single sitting elected, call every law enforcement agency, call every police department, just trying to make sure that the machinery of the federal government doesn't get to disappear people.
Yeah.
And we turned up hundreds of protesters and created accountability so that nobody gets to sort of decide that this narrative is going to be different. And that's the scary thing about this whole thing is we're looking at all the evidence in front of our faces. We have video, or we have audio messages from somebody saying, I just want to go home, I'm being held, I think they're taking me somewhere. And the official narrative over and over again, the sort of monolith of the state is, you're crazy, this isn't happening. And
it's gaslighting.
It's gaslighting. And if you can control every layer of the narrative from the state, if you don't have people making a stink like that, if you don't have people getting in touch with electeds and reporters and blasting it out wherever possible, it's totally possible that just becomes the story. And I'm scared of how many people didn't happen to know, somebody with a platform who are just shipped off and they disappear for 7 days, and we don't know how they got to Texas. We don't know how they got to New Mexico, but they're just there, and suddenly their family is trying to figure out how to get them back.
Well, the Trump administration, ICE, it feels very much like Raptors testing the fences, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're breaking the law, you're like, well, how much can I break the law, right? Can I break it this much without getting in trouble? Can I break it this much? You're doing a good job of effectively pushing back, but do you feel like they're figuring out what you're doing and finding ways around it? And are you feeling like you're still making headway, or do you feel like they're finding ways around the momentum that you're making right now?
Yeah, this is the hard thing. There are some wins. One of the things that's really frustrating, though, is that all of this burden constantly falls on the community. we are watching laws being broken by law enforcement every single day. And they don't apparently feel any obligation to follow their own code of conduct, follow federal law, follow the spirit of the Constitution. And the job of creating accountability, the job of making sure that they face repercussions for breaking it, always falls on just like protesters in the streets and local journalists who are trying to make sure that these stories get told, and it's infuriating and it's maddening.
Yeah.
Like I'm hugely proud of the work that all of these communities have been doing. Like, look at what the folks in Minnesota and Minneapolis, every iteration of ICE coming into communities, we get better at the immune response. Minneapolis is better at it than Chicago was. Chicago is better at it than Portland was. And like every time you roll through, you learn things from each other. But we shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of the fact that, yeah, we're getting better at it. Yeah, the momentum is growing. But yeah, as you're saying, they escalate more every time, and it seems like there's no consequence for their escalations, and all of the work of it falls on all of us. So yeah, sort of tale of two cities here. Like we're getting better at civil disobedience, we're getting better at accountability, we're getting better at the work of beating them back, but also if you aren't bound by the laws and you're just willing to full send fascism, then there's a lot that you can do with state power that we've got to combat against.
Yeah, it's the who's going to watch the Watchmen.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Now, we were talking about ICE. We all know that they're going to do another sweep through here. As Chicagoans, what can we do? As you said, we're getting better, but what else can we do?
Yeah. So we've already got these really great networks of rapid response and community support networks and mutual aid that have been amazing. I am deeply frustrated that we haven't seen more from like our local law enforcement pushing back against this.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the times that I've been slammed into a wall at Broadview or something, it's not by ICE, it's not by CBP, it's by like Illinois State Police.
You mean the police do bad things to citizens?
It is.
Yeah.
I talked to EJ, candidly, my favorite word, EJ and I have conversations, and, it does feel like a lot of white Americans are starting to feel like what it is to be a person of color in this country, right?
Yeah.
Like these are things where it's like, yeah, of course you guys aren't used to this yet, but walking down the street and being harassed by cops, just for speaking out, this is old hat to unfortunately a large, group of people in this country.
Yeah, it's like, why is the monster attacking me now?
Yeah.
Me? A white guy?
Yes, which also is I think a real political opportunity, because I got people who are in like River Forest, Illinois, who have never thought about political activism, who are like, the government really seems like it's acting irresponsibly now. It's like, yes,
and
Susan,
black people are like,
you're
duh.
right, Susan. Yes,
Susan is right. Yes.
Yes. Okay, join up. Let's go. I want to see that type of energy demanding that our local law enforcement isn't aiding and abetting ICE. We've watched as a lot of the enforcement opportunities. I was out at Broadview, I think, what day is it? 3 days ago. Time's a flat circle.
It's okay.
And the ICE agents who are going out in unmarked vehicles with tape over their license plates are doing so with the gates opened and the protesters pushed back by Broadview and county police, which is supposed to be illegal. Those officers aren't supposed to help federal law enforcement do illegal actions, like, for example, using unmarked vehicles for their raids. And so I want to see, when Chicago is again the victim of another sweep, of another raid, a combination of pressure on our officials to stop aiding and abetting there, and then use the techniques that Minneapolis was doing. Like, we had road blockades and stuff. If people are coming in to kidnap our neighbors and they're doing so illegally, then I think lawful civil disobedience is appropriate. I think blocking streets to stop things like illegal arrests is table stakes and the necessary action to stop people from being victimized by an unlawful government order.
I know EJ did want to hear this, so I'll ask. What's a good company? What's like a company or corporation that you think is good?
Yeah. Look, all of the small businesses that you interact with have a 1,000 million times % better chance of being a good company than the major companies. And there's a few reasons here. One, they are not like they're probably not captured by multinational corporate interests. But two, they invest in communities. Small businesses hire more people than the biggest companies by orders of magnitude. You hear people, like, I'll give you an example here. Google, one of the biggest companies in the world, it spends less than 16% of its revenue on hiring people. My mom is a dog groomer. She hires...
Lockheed Martin?
No, but she hires like 30 people across the business and spends like 90% of that money just hiring people in the community and doing a service that has no connection to killing people.
Yeah, just grooming dogs.
Just grooming dogs.
That's what we all need.
Making dogs smell better.
Grow your own weed, smoke your own weed,
yeah,
groom dogs.
Like,
right?
Find a local, a local bookstore, a local dog groomer, a local restaurant, a
local
cafe,
laser tag facility.
Local laser tag facility.
Laser tag.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when I had a climbing gym that was a local climbing gym, and now it's been bought up by a bunch of private equity dudes, and so now I have to change hobbies. But like, find a local business. Chances are, if it has fewer than 5 locations, they're gonna be better than anything related to something that's listed on a on a stock exchange.
Awesome. Thank you, Reed.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you so much.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Everyone go vote.
Yes, go vote. Is there anything that you want to let the people know and promote and let them know right there in the camera?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, you got an election coming up in just a few days, and you could not pick a more important time. This is maybe like the cheapest unit cost of political change that Illinois has had in its history. There's a bunch of congressional seats, there's a Senate election, there's gubernatorial stuff up. Go vote. Pick somebody who's going to champion your progressive values, who's going to do it loudly, proudly, in the streets, who isn't bought. And if you want to check us out, go to read4congress.com. We'd love your support. We'd love your help knocking doors. If you got $5, we're trying to keep up with millions of dollars of APAC money. But anything helps. Really appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right, we're done.
Love it.
That was great.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
I got 5 on.